Chapter 12, The Mind Examining Itself. There is something strange that happens once a person begins seriously examining their own mind. The observer itself becomes unstable. At first, self-examination feels relatively straightforward. A person notices emotional reactions, inherited beliefs, tribal influences, attachment patterns, or conditioned desires. Awareness increases. Certain unconscious processes become more visible. Reflection deepens. But eventually, another realization begins emerging. The mind doing the examining is itself shaped, conditioned, emotionally filtered, and psychologically motivated. The observer is not standing outside the system. The observer is inside it. This realization changes the nature of self-awareness entirely. Because now the problem is no longer simply, how do I understand myself? It becomes, how does a conditioned mind accurately examine its own conditioning? This is not merely a philosophical puzzle. It is an existential one. Human beings naturally imagine that there exists somewhere inside them a completely objective observer capable of cleanly separating truth from distortion. But once awareness deepens, this assumption itself begins weakening. The examining mind carries inherited language, emotional patterning, tribal loyalties, cognitive limitations, identity needs, narrative structures, attachment histories, biological impulses, and unconscious motivations. Even introspection itself can become distorted. A person may unconsciously reinterpret self-awareness in ways that protect identity. They may become attached to seeing themselves as especially awakened, rational, independent, healed, moral, self-aware, or psychologically evolved. The ego adapts quickly to whatever identity structure preserves significance. Even humility can become performance. Even self-awareness can become vanity. Even the examined life can become identity. This is one reason genuine self-examination tends to produce increasing caution regarding one's own certainty. The deeper a person looks into the machinery of thought, the more difficult it becomes to maintain simplistic confidence about their own objectivity. This does not mean self-awareness is meaningless. Far from it. It means awareness must itself remain examined. The examined mind therefore becomes recursive. A person notices not only beliefs, but attachment to beliefs. Not only emotions, but identification with emotions. Not only narratives, but the need for narrative. Not only tribe, but the desire to feel superior to tribe. Not only self-deception, but the ego's ability to appropriate self-awareness itself. This recursive awareness can feel disorienting at first. The ground keeps moving. Each time a person believes they have finally escaped unconsciousness, another layer appears underneath. Another emotional investment. Another subtle identity structure. Another narrative organizing perception quietly from the background. At some point, the examined life stops feeling like arrival and starts feeling more like ongoing participation in a process that never fully ends. This realization can produce two very different responses. One response is exhaustion or cynicism. If complete objectivity is impossible, then why bother? The other response is humility. Not nihilistic humility, not passive relativism, but the recognition that clearer seeing matters even if perfect seeing remains unreachable. A map can still orient imperfectly. Human beings do not require omniscience to live more consciously. This distinction is crucial because some people become trapped in an all-or-nothing model of awareness. If total liberation from conditioning is impossible, they conclude that examination itself is pointless. But this misunderstands the nature of the examined life. The goal is not perfection. The goal is increasing participation. A reactive person may not become perfectly free from anger, but they may become more aware while anger unfolds. A tribal person may never fully escape social identity, but they may become more conscious of how tribe shapes perception. A fearful person may never eliminate fear completely, but they may learn to distinguish fear from truth. Awareness changes the relationship even when it does not eliminate the condition entirely. And relationships matter. This is especially important because modern culture often promotes fantasies of total self-mastery. The idealized individual appears fully conscious, fully healed, fully rational, fully integrated, fully authentic, fully liberated from conditioning. Real human beings are not like this. Real human beings remain layered, contradictory, unfinished, emotionally shaped, socially influenced, biologically embedded creatures navigating uncertainty with partial awareness and imperfect maps. The examined life does not remove this humanity. It deepens relationship to it. Paradoxically, the more honestly people observe themselves, the less likely they often become to divide humanity neatly into aware people and unaware people. The line separating insight from blindness runs through every individual continuously. Human beings move in and out of awareness, depending on context, emotion, identity threat, exhaustion, tribe pressure, fear, desire, and countless other factors. No one remains fully awake all the time. And perhaps expecting permanent awakening becomes another subtle form of ego idealization. What matters more is orientation, returning, re examining, remaining willing to look again. This willingness gradually transforms the emotional tone of thought itself. The examined mind becomes less rigidly attached to appearing correct and more committed to staying responsive to reality as honestly as possible. Curiosity strengthens. Psychological flexibility strengthens. Certainty softens. Contradiction becomes more tolerable. Revision becomes less humiliating. The person becomes less interested in constructing a flawless self-image and more interested in participating consciously in the ongoing formation of the self. And perhaps this is one of the deepest realizations waiting at the center of the examined life. Human beings are not static identities who occasionally think. We are evolving processes of perception, interpretation, emotion, memory, narrative, biology, culture, and awareness interacting continuously over time. The self is not a finished object discovered once and for all. It is something unfolding, something shaped, something examining itself while simultaneously being shaped by the very process of examination. And maybe wisdom begins not when the process ends, but when a person finally stops pretending they stand outside it.